Hi, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this new webinar by the Cyber9's team. You're very welcome, and we're looking forward to the next hour or so with you on the topic of cluster control, number 1.4. It's our latest release of cluster control, and we're happy to be able to present it to you today, including a live demonstration. My colleague Johan Andersson will do the presentation today as well as the demo. Johan is our CTO and the creator of ClusterControl. So we're looking forward to these next 60 minutes with Johan and all of you. And just before we get started, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what ClusterControl is all about on the next slide. Really, the concept is around automation and management of open source databases. And here we focus on four main areas. Which is the deployment, monitoring, management, and scaling. And if we move to the next slide, then you can have a look at what that looks like. So we focus on these four areas where we help DBAs, system admins, developers, DevOps professionals to automate and manage their open source databases. The focus being on MySQL, MongoDB, and Postgres. But today the main topics are around MySQL Replication and MongoDB, because that's where we have most of the new features in the new version of ClusterControl. And just before we get started with Johan's presentation, I wanted to run a quick poll and ask all of you a question who are participating today. And this is whether you're currently using ClusterControl or not. It'd be interesting to know if you're already a user or if you're new to the product. So if you could participate in this poll, that'd be really helpful, and it'll help you and also position a little bit the discussion for the next hour. So you might be using the community edition, or you might be evaluating our enterprise version. Maybe you're a customer already. Or you've downloaded ClusterControl but didn't get a chance to test it yet, or you're new to us and you've come today to kind of think about what the different options are out there in the market for managing and automating open source databases. So thanks for your participation in this poll. I'm just going to close it now and share the results. Great. So it looks like it's a split between some of you who use the community edition and others who are customers. So that's nice to see. And hopefully we can convince some of you who are using currently community to test the enterprise version to see if those features would be useful for you and that you might be interested in testing them out. And then for those of you who have downloaded, it'd be great if you could go ahead and test it and give us your feedback. And if you're not quite sure yet, then feel free to, of course, download ClusterControl after the session and have a closer look. So thanks for participating in this poll. And with all of this said, I'm handing over to you, Johan, for the presentation.
Right. Thank you very much, JJ. So let's see. There we have the slides. And JJ, you mentioned a little bit what problems we address and so on. So I will get into the presentations really soon, just to give you some background here. So ClusterControl does not only give you monitoring and alerting and graphing, but we also have a layer of control on the automation, which is assisting you with things like provisioning, config management, availability management, and scaling. Right? But not only that. On top of that, we have also ClusterControl DSL, which stands for Domain-Specific Language. It's a JavaScript-like language, and it allows you to create JavaScript programs that are executing basically code inside ClusterControl. So what you can do is to look at historic data and write then programs that are then giving you a forecast what would happen, and based on that then you can basically write your own code for when you should automatically add nodes, for example. So very powerful tool to be aware of that we have. So I will speak now about the main contents of this presentation, and that's what's new in 1.4.0. We have had replication or support for MySQL replication before, but we have done a lot of improvements there. We'll show you later. We have added a proxy SQL support, group replication support, and also for Mongo we have shaped it up and added support for MongoDB 3.x series. And we've also worked on a number of other things and improvements. So when it comes to the MySQL replication, what we have done there is on the front-end side, we have worked a lot on creating a new wizard for creating really powerful master-slave setups or multi-master setups. Then on the control layer, we have added automatic failover and switchover. So it allows you to the cluster to reorganize if a master should fail. It's also possible then to rebuild failed replication slaves and reconfigure the topology as you like to have it. So with our deployment, it's possible to set up, for example, a master-master configuration where we have in one data center we have M1 replicating to the slaves S1 and S2, and then on another data center then we have a standby master. Now we are dictating that at least or exactly one of the servers in this replication setup should be a master and must be then writable. The rest of the servers are having the read-only flag set, and then if there are no writable master, well then if you have configured it so, an automatic failover will happen that elects one of the read-only slaves to become the new master. And this leads us into another section here, which I think is very important, and that is if you ever consider to do manual operations outside of ClusterControl, so you go in from your MySQL client, you want to change your master, you want to stop a slave, you want to fiddle with the read-only flags and so on, then you should make sure that you disable automatic node and cluster recovery, right? And also, if you're not a fan of ClusterControl managing the read-only settings, well, then you should set a configuration flag auto-manage read-only equals 0. Well, but that's really kind of defeats the purpose because you will not have then really automatic failover. Right. So in the failover algorithm that we have implemented works pretty much like what I will explain to you next. First of all, you must have enabled cluster recovery, so it must be on. And then if then the master 1 fails, well, ClusterControl will then see that, hey, we don't have any writable server, right? We have lost the master. And then it will see that it has only read-only slave servers, and it will then elect one of the read-only servers to become the new master. But before we do this election, we're checking, of course, that we don't have any errant transactions, and if we have errant transactions, the failover will be aborted. And then when we have determined that it is safe to do a failover, we will look among the slaves and find the most advanced slave, the one with the least lag, and no problems. I mean, there should not be a we will not elect a slave that has errors on the SQL apply thread, for example. But then when we have found a good option, a good candidate, we will then elect that slave as the new master. And if we don't find any slaves, well, then we will not make the failover at all. You can also then affect the behavior of the failover quite a bit. So if you would like the failover to happen despite the fact that you have errant transactions, well, then you can disable you can set replication stop on error equals 0, and that will allow you to fail over despite errant transactions. Then we have a whitelist and a blacklist, which you can configure to either include servers in the failover or exclude servers from a failover. So, for example, if your master is in data center 1 and and then you have servers in slaves in data center 1 as well, and then you have some other standby server in another data center. Well, you may not want to, if the master crashes in the data center 1, you might want to elect the servers from the data center 1 to become the new master, right? So you would blacklist the servers in the second data center, for example. So you can do that here with a blacklist and whitelist. And then we also have a flag which is called wait to apply timeout, and when we have determined a good candidate to become the new master, it may be so that it has, despite it is the most advanced server, it is the best pick relay log that it needs to apply before we can actually turn it into a master. And this timeout then specify how long should wait for it to apply outstanding changes before making it a master. We are setting it to -1 by default, so it will wait forever to apply these changes. But this is a behavior that you then can configure yourself. As I said, it's then also possible to rebuild a replication slave. So if a slave is getting corrupted for some reason, you can rebuild it by a command. An extra backup will be taken, streamed, applied, and the server will become online again. And then topology change, just to show you what that is. For example, if you would like to move S2 from being of F1 and reslave it of S1, for example, that's something that you can also do. And switch over if you are not happy with M1 as a master and want to promote S2 to become a new master, well, you can do that too with the click of a button. That leads us into the next subject, because, well, now we have these all fancy new features for MySQL replication, and if a master fails, another slave will become the new master. And of course here, this might lead to problems for the applications, right? So what you really would like to have in front of your replication setup is some load balancer, right? That is doing read-write splitting on your MySQL replication nodes. And then we have added support for ProxySQL, which is a load balancer that's been around for a little bit of time, but I think during the last 6 months it has become really, really popular. And if you haven't looked into this one, I strongly recommend that you do. In this release 1.4.0, we have included ProxySQL support for MySQL replication clusters. And we are adding then support for Galera, but as I said, only MySQL replication at this point in time. And what this will do with your MySQL replication setup is that it will provide this read-write splitting functionality. So when a master is a new master is elected, ClusterControl will then start the failover process, elect a new master, and ProxSQL will pick it up and reroute write queries to the new master. And what we have done in our support for this release is that we have made it possible to deploy it and also to monitor it. And then we will add more management functionality in the next release here. But first and foremost, you can, it's dead easy to install it. You specify on what server you would like to install it. You give it some passwords for the different users, and then you can also create from deployment directly in the deployment a user that is allowed to connect from ProxSQL to the database servers, to the MySQL replication servers, right? So if so here you can specify a user called Bob, for example. He will have the insert and the kind of select privileges. This will be created then on the MySQL server and on the MySQL servers, and ProxSQL will then be automatically, when provisioned, allowed to connect to the MySQL servers using this user. So it's quite handy. Second thing is, or another thing that we've added is then the group replication. If you're not familiar with the group replication, it's quite similar to Galera, but with one, I would say, distinct difference, and that is that in Galera, all servers are kind of, you can read and write to any server. Some applications, it might be not suited to operate in that mode, right? But nevertheless, in group replication, there is a little bit more strict. You will have one master which you can write to and read to, of course, but the rest of the servers part of the group replication setup will be read-only, and they will actually have also the super read-only set to true. So they can really only be read from, and then you have just one writable master. But as with Galera, the group replication offers virtual synchronous clustering. So if the M1 fails, you will have the data on either S1 or S2, and the group replication protocol will automatically elect one of the nodes to become the new writable master, right? We have then also added support here, so you can add replication slaves to this. So pretty much you can set up what is called this InnoDB cluster, which is the recommended kind of our new architecture by Oracle. We have also some other features here for management of this. So if a server would fail and cannot be recovered by the counterpart to an incremental state transfer in Galera, well, we then have implemented so that it will try and rebuild it using well, an extra backup. There is no built-in support for this at the moment within the group replication to restage a failed or /corrupted node. Right, that was a bit short of the group replication. Another big thing is about MongoDB, and we have then done a lot of improvements to deployment wizard from the UI side. I'll show you that in a bit. But what I think is really cool here is that you can start with a single MongoDB node. You can then grow it up to a replica set, and you can then of course add more nodes to this replica set, arbitrators and so on. And then you can actually then convert the replica set into a sharded cluster. And then you can scale the sharded cluster by adding additional replica sets, so shards to this cluster. And you can also then, of course, remove shards. And you can also remove routers or Mongo's processes which are routing the queries on the shards to this sharded setup. Then we have also backup restore, the possibility to freeze a node, and also a couple of new advisors for MongoDB. So what you can do here is just, I'm showing you here by slide now, but give you an idea here what you can do. So you have the replica set on the left, and then you can convert it into a sharded cluster. And a sharded cluster means that you will have config servers, and you will have then routers that are routing queries onto the shards inside the cluster. Then, of course, the possibility to add more shards is quite powerful. And then another thing that we are very keen on here is that you might have seen in the news earlier this year about MongoDB being hacked, right? And if you had an unsecure MongoDB databases, a lot of people, or at least a number of MongoDB databases, were exposed, and code were injected, and the only way to recover your MongoDB database was to pay 0.2 bitcoins to some crazy address, right? And this is, of course, something that you do not want to happen, right? So to protect against this, we have security advisors built into MongoDB, where it checks if the authentication is, enabled or if it is disabled, and you will get notified about that. Or if you're using too weak passwords, you will also be notified. So I think those are coming in quite handy, because it might be, it's easy to forget to configure MongoDB in a secure way. Now I must stress that when you deploy a MongoDB setup from within ClusterControl, we are setting it up as a secure system with proper authentication in place. We also then have advisors for replication, to check if you have problems with lags, or if you have too many connections, or for WiredTiger, if you have problems with concurrency tickets, concurrency problems then. And for sharded setups, we are checking if all your collections are sharded, and then if a collection is not sharded, we tell you exactly what collections that are not sharded, and you can do something about it, because it is really recommended that you shard all the collections in a sharded MongoDB setup. Some other things we've worked on is the backup. We have done some improvements there. A new operational report to give you insight if there are newer database and also security packages available. This only works for MySQL-based setups at the moment. And then we have the possibility to send clear notification messages if you have had cluster fail and node fails and they have been resolved, right? And you can get a notification now that, well, there's no problem any longer. And then we also added maintenance mode, which allows you to enter the cluster or a node into maintenance mode if you want to do manual work on it. What it really does is that it silences the node, so it will not alarm while it is in maintenance mode, and you can do pretty much whatever you want with it, right? And especially then if you are also at the same time disabling the node and cluster recovery, then you can be sure that no one is getting alerted and nothing strange will happen. Right, I think it's time for a demo, but before we take the demo, JJ, you want to run another poll, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Johan. And also just remind everyone who's with us today that you can ask questions at any moment, of course, during this this presentation. We already have a couple of questions, and we'll answer them towards the end of the webinar. So feel free to ask them by using the question section of your control panel at any moment, and we'll get to them towards the end of the webinar, where we have some time allocated for questions. But for now, we wanted to find out from what you've seen so far from the presentation, which of the features we've just talked about seem the most of most interest to you, and that you might be the most likely to want to try out and have a look at. Whether it's the features around MySQL Replication or the ones related to MongoDB. Maybe you haven't heard of ProxySQL before, you might want to try it out. Or you'd like to check out a bit of everything. That's always that's always an option. Or you're not quite sure yet, and you're waiting for the demo to see which features might be of most interest to you. But it'd be great to get your feedback here, and then we can maybe also look at how what to focus on during the demo as well. It might be useful for you, Johan, to get this feedback here.
Yep.
So I let this run for a few seconds and give everyone the chance to participate. Great. Thanks very much for taking part in this poll. I'm going to close this now and share the results. Okay, nice. So it's an even split between ProxySQL and MySQL Replication. So that's good to see, and also nice to see a good bit of interest in our new MongoDB features. So that'll be good to cover a little bit. And then the rest of you kind of want to maybe interested in a bit of everything, or not quite sure yet which one might be of most interest. But nice to see those interest levels, and it'll be nice to look at that now in the demo as well. So I'll hand over back to you, Johan.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right. I hope you can see my screen still here. So here is then cluster control from the UI perspective. We're seeing 4 different types of clusters. I've installed a replication cluster consisting of a master and 2 replication slaves connected to it, and then also a ProxySQL server. And then a Galera cluster here, and then consisting of 3 nodes, and is also based on Percona 5.7, and that's also one thing that is new from in 1.4 actually, that you can deploy 5.7 clusters. And then we have a MongoDB version 3.2 cluster here. It consists of 3 instances. It's just one replica set that I will show you here. And then the last cluster on the list here, what you see is a group replication cluster. Right. What I want to show you first is to give you an overview of MongoDB, and then I'll go into the MySQL replication, and then finally show you ProxySQL, and round it up a little bit with some failover in action. So let's start then with MongoDB here. And What you can do is, what we first look at is how you can deploy and the different deployment options for MongoDB. The first option you have is to deploy it as a replica set, and it's also then possible to create sharded setups. If you want to create a replica set, well, what you have to do is to define the SSH user, which is allowed to connect to the different servers that will be part of the MongoDB replica set. So this is pretty similar to all clusters, all type of clusters that we use, that we have to define these generic properties first. And then we can press continue, and we have to give, we have an option to choose if we want to base our cluster on Percona or on Percona's release of MongoDB, or MongoDB's own repositories, own builds. We then specify an administration username, and we also give it an admin password, so that we are setting it up with good with authentication and so on from the beginning. We can give a name to our replica set, and by default we just give it this myMongoDB_0, and then we can start adding in the nodes that we want to have here, right? And so perhaps something like this. And so on. And then what we would do now is to hit the deploy button, and it would start the process of installing MongoDB on the selected nodes here. I will not do it at the moment right now. Instead, I will go in and show you the sharded setup, which is very similar. In the beginning, you have to key in the details on how you can access your servers that will be used by the sharded setup. And in a sharded setup, the key difference between the shard setup and the replica set setup is that you have a number of configuration servers in the sharded setup, which is predominantly really used in if you have more than one shard, right? Because the configuration servers are keeping track on where data is located on which shard, right? So if you only one shard, then it's kind of easy for the replication servers, for the configuration servers to maintain it, right? But we have to specify, that we are specifying 3 configuration servers. And the reason why you have 3 is for, of course, high availability, right? So that if one of them fails, they can still form a quorum. And then we add these router servers that we want to have. So we can add 3 of them. And we can continue to the next step, which is to define the shard, right? The shards. And we can add then the different nodes that we want to place in the first shard. And we can also have advanced options here to, if we want to delay one of the members in the shard, or if this particular node that we're adding should be an arbitrator. And in that case, it comes up here as an arbitrator. And we can then also go on and add another shard. So now we have defined here shard 0. We can then define shard 1 and so on. And eventually we can click continue. So let's remove this. And then we give some security credentials again, and then we can hit deploy, right? And the sharded setup will be, sharded cluster will be then installed. So that's a little bit about deploying MongoDB replica set and shards. It's very similar if you have used MySQL Replication Galera before. Then you will notice that the steps are pretty much the same, right? So if we go into this replica set now, we are showing the ops counters, and we're showing which are the nodes that we have. We have a primary and we have two secondaries. We have different default graphs here about caching, network, locks, asserts, and things like that are going wrong basically, or some problems perhaps inside MongoDB, right? So this is our main overview page of our MongoDB web replica setup. Now, if we would like to, we can add nodes to this replica set. So if we would like to grow it with more nodes, we can do that. And we have to specify if it's a type of database node that we want to add, or an arbitrator that we want to add to this replica set. We can also then convert this replica set to a sharded setup. And to do that, we have to specify the number of, the configuration servers and the MongoDB routers for this, right? And then we can convert this replica set into a sharded cluster, and then we could then add more shards to it. Then we have also the possibility to take backups, right, as the normal things. So here you are actually seeing the kind of new backup interface, where it's more integrated than it was before. We can specify here what backup methods we want to use. If we want to use MongoDB dump or a MongoDB consistent backup, which is actually coming from Percona. You can create backup schedules in a more easy way in this release, and this look and feel is the same for all types of clusters that we support. And then eventually you can also look in here and look at the schedules that you have if you want to go in and enable or edit them, for example. Then we have now there's not so much going on onto our MongoDB setup, so there's not much running. But here you have basically a MongoStat that is running, so you can see the tool basically that we're running on the command line, the MongoStat tool. You can actually see the output of it here inside the UI. Right, I think this is pretty much what I wanted to show you on the MongoDB cluster. So I will move in a little bit, just quickly show you the group replication cluster. It's very much the same. We have the the look and feel of that as well. We have the cluster load graph here. And we have also, what the status information about the nodes in the group replication setup. And here we can see that, okay, .19 here is the writable node, and the other two are read-only. And then we can see the status of them if they are online inside the group replication cluster, right? Or if they have any problems, or if they're recovering, or whatever they are doing. And if the worker, I mean the kind of the applier is enabled on the node, so it is applying data that is sent to this particular node. Then I wanted to go in now and show you the replication setup. And the replication setup, the deployment is the first thing that you have to do again with the MySQL replication is the same. Specify the user and you give some kind of cluster name. And then what you can choose from here are a couple of different vendors to create your replication setup from. You can choose from Percona, MariaDB, and Oracle, and different versions. So if you are a new, if you are deploying something new, I would recommend for MariaDB that you use 10.1, and for Percona, Oracle, that you are actually using the 5.7 series. We give it some kind of password for the root account, and then we are then able to define our replication topology. So here I will specify that we have one master server A, and then I will add a secondary master B, and then I can add a slave to A, another slave to A, and I can add another slave to B, and yet another slave to B, right? And then when I'm set up, I will get this set up, right? So this could perhaps be handy, if you have two different data centers. You want to have, in data center 1 you have this, and in data center 2 you have, well, the master B, right? And now then, if you want to fine-tune this, well, you do deploy this now. And then after the fine-tuning, you can set the replication whitelist or blacklist, right? So that you are affecting the choice that should be made when there is a failover, which master should be elected, right? Or which slave should be elected as the new master. So let's go in here then to look at this replication setup that we have here. It's now this is based on Percona 5.7. We have one master node which is writable, and then we have a read-only server here, and another read-only server here, right? So they are replicating from the master host 10, 10, 10, 10. And we get some stats about, the executed GTAs, the retrieved GTAs, and so on, right? And now, if you want to do manual changes to this node, well, you should go in here and toggle these things before you do anything manual to this node. So what we can do here, I can go in and click on this node here, and then I get to, well, our nodes page, where we get some more information about particularly this node. I can choose then a number of actions on these servers. So for example, I could go in here and disable the read-only, so I would make it writable. You will get an alarm in that case, because we will detect that there are more than one writable server. It might be okay to have more than one writable server, so we'll just send you an alarm, right? We'll not do any failure. But if there are 0 writable servers, so that all servers are read-only, then ClusterControl will trigger an automatic failover if the cluster recovery up here is on, and that's the state right now. I can then choose from the menu here as well to promote this slave to become the new master. So in that case, it would swap place with the master 10.10.10. I can also, if I would like to, rebuild this slave, which will then take a backup of, let me show you here. Yeah, that's, it should look like this, where you select from which master you would like to actually rebuild the slave, right? then you can rebuild it from the current master, or you could rebuild it from another slave, and then it would become attached to this other slave. So you could kind of implicitly change the topology while you are rebuilding the slave, and as well as you can do also change the replication master of this one. So you could change it from being, now it's a master, and now the master is 10.10.10, but it could be so that you want to make the 10.11 the slave of 10.12, right? So enough of that. What I will do now is I will go in here and I will start suspense running on the cluster right now. And actually, the suspense program is hitting the next thing that I will show you here, which is the proxy SQL server. So we are shooting direct traffic from proxy SQL, and the proxy SQL is then the load balancer doing a read-write splitting across my master and the replication servers, right? So you have the so if you go in here to manage load balancer, it is possible then to install a new load balancer, where you can select, if you have an existing node where you want to install it on, or if you want to specify a new node where you want to install it, right? So we can select some node here, and then we can give it an administration password and then a user for the a password for the monitor user, which is the one that is pinging actually the MySQL server that it is load balancing on. We can then create a new user, and we can give this user a password. We can then say what are the database it should be granted on, and we can then give it privileges here. And I think this is pretty useful, because often when you deploy a load balancer, you would like your you are directing then your applications to the load balancer, but it is the load balancer that is in turn connecting to the underlying MySQL service it's load balancing on, right? So you need to have some user with the correct amount of privileges here. You can also then select what are the instances you would like to include in the load balancing. And you can also set that if there is a replication lag of more than 10 seconds, then we will not load balance to this server, right? Or maximally allow the 100 connections, right? Or you can give some weight as well, so prefer this server instead of that server for load balancing requests. So it gives you, and that's a general theme of proxy SQL, is that it gives you quite a lot of freedom and quite a lot of configuration options. And we're working for the next release to support tons of the configurations options that it supports. Right now, we can go in here to our monitor, and we can see what the monitor, the status of our load balancer. And now, without going too much details into proxy SQL, well, when it comes to replication, the replication setup at least, we are organizing our MySQL servers into two groups. These groups are called host groups. In one host group, in this case 10, we have the master MySQL server, right? And we have actually also, I'm not going to show you that now, but there are also rules, so that we are saying that if there is a kind of a write query, anything with write should go to should be routed to the host group 10, right? And ProxySQL will automatically place the servers into the correct host group. So since this master is a writable master 10.10.10, ProxySQL will place it in host group 10. Right? If we look then at host group 20, here are the read-only or the readable servers. Of course, you see the master here as well, 10.10. But you can both read and write from a master, right? So that's perfectly possible. And we can see here, and then we have also then given a rule that we have constructed a rule when we deploy ProxySQL that we will a select query will go to host group 20. Whereas a select for update query should go to host group 10, right? So it's very possible to configure ProxySQL to pretty much do whatever you want when it comes to load balancing, really making it very, very powerful. And then we are seeing here now that we are getting some data on the ProxySQL server, and everything is looking good. So we can go back here, and we can go back to the overview page, and here we have showing the load on the cluster. So what I will do now is that I will go out and I will kill the master node 10.10.10, and we'll see what happens, right? And I'll go here, and I have prepared a little bit here. So Sysbench is still running here, and here is the master MySQL server address. So I will just do a kill, and then there will be a failover, and sometimes, well, you have to retry the transactions. That's pretty normal. But what will have happened now is that 10.10.10.11 will have been elected as the new master. And it is then writable. The previous master is 10.10.10, right? We're putting it in as read-only, but we have also shut it down, and we do not automatically restart the failed master, and that's because we don't want. It might be corrupted. We don't know what the state is. So when we have had a master failure, we should really look a little bit closer to see, what is the problem with this master. We can go into the ProxySQL again, and we see in host group 10 that we have, the new master here, and in host group 10, it's apparently not reflected here right now, but this one is not online any longer. But anyways, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. I definitely suggest that you give this a try, and by that, and if you have questions, you're very welcome to come back to us with questions about ProxySQL, or if you have problems, getting it started, so on, please get in touch with us. But with that, I would like to hand over to you, JJ, again, for another poll before we finish up this session.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Johan. And thanks everyone there's been a couple of questions already, so we'll answer them just after this poll. And feel free to ask more questions, of course, if you have some. We just want to ask you very briefly before we get to the questions, whether based on what you've seen, you'll be taking a look at the new cluster control. Whether you'll be downloading it to do some tests, or maybe you're thinking of upgrading if you're a customer on a previous version, or maybe it's just still investigating, and you mightn't be downloading straight away, but you take a look at it over the next few weeks. It'd be great to get your feedback here. And once we've run that poll, we'll answer a few questions that have been asked already in the question section of our control panel. But thanks for now for participating in this last poll. And just let this run for a couple of seconds. Great. Thanks a lot for your participation here. I'm just going to close this now and share the results. Good, nice. So it looks like a good few of you are looking to download and take a look at the new cluster control as soon as you get a chance, which is nice to see. Or you're still investigating, which is also a good place to be. And hopefully, you've got some good insight here, and you might be motivated by it to go and look at cluster control more closely. So thanks for your participation in this poll. I'm just going to hide these results again, and Johan, maybe you can share the last slide where we have some additional, or related resources anyway for cluster control.
Yeah, sure. So here.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so if you want to check out our product pages on our website, feel free to do so, of course. We have the link here to download cluster control. We've got really nice documentation also, of course, on the product. Check out our YouTube channel. We have some nice new videos, with specific demos for features, for specific feature sets, for example. And of course, our blog that you can subscribe to and follow. We blog on a daily basis almost, so feel free to follow that. But just a couple of questions. There's a question here from Katie, and she's asking, so they're currently using Galera with HA proxy. Just very briefly, Johan, what are the main benefits of using proxy SQL with Galera as opposed to HA proxy?
Well, yeah, I think the fact that it is so configurable makes it powerful, but then also, well, with great freedom comes a lot of responsibility too. So, yeah, but I think that is the main benefit, that it is very highly performing. So it's lean on resources, and then that you can customize how queries should be routed. I think that's very, very strong, and also a very strong point with proxy SQL. Another thing is that if you, for example, would have had a legacy application that is connecting, and you don't have the source for this legacy application, you don't know hardly what it's doing, you can connect it through proxy SQL, and then if you're seeing then that some of these queries are wrong or suboptimal, well, then you can add rules into proxy SQL to rewrite this query into something that is performing faster on your system. So I think that those are the main benefits, and then yeah, the interface to proxy SQL is also based on MySQL, so it's a bit more easier for to reconfigure it than it is to reconfigure an HA proxy, for example. You do it the reconfiguration from an SQL interface, basically.
Great, thanks, Johan. And just since we are talking about proxy SQL, there's a question here from Saeed, and he's asking whether proxy SQL is only for replication.
Right now, we only have it for replication. We are adding it for Galera in the next release of ClusterControl. So it was not really 100% ready yet, the ProxySQL for Galera when we started to include it. But now it is, so that means that we can, well, take it in.
Okay, great. Thanks, Johan. And on a side note, we're going to announce a new webinar this week, and it's going to be on ProxySQL, and the creator of ProxySQL will join us for that webinar. It'll be at the end of this month. So look out for an invitation for that this week, or a communication on that, and feel free to sign up for that if you want to find out more about ProxySQL and the advantages and how to use it. Then we'll have our next webinar will be exactly on that topic at the end of the month. And
just a small thing here, just so you saw with ProxySQL, even though you know it's not taking care of everything, you still have to retry transactions in your application if they are failing. Well, Sysbench do not have transaction retry logic, so yeah, just so you know.
Okay. Thanks, Johan. And there's another question here from Katie, and she's asking whether there's there might be a tool that would allow people to restore a single database or a single table in Galera.
If there is such a tool, no. I only know the command line procedure for doing this, but rest assured, Kathy, that we are working on being able to restore a particular database or table from the UI.
Great. So something for an upcoming release then. Yep.
Yes, exactly. But I must say it is taking some time. It's a tricky procedure. There is a lot of interaction that needs to be happening there.
Okay, great. That's good to know, and thanks for the questions, Katie and Said. So I think we're just past the hour, so I think we can probably finish this this webinar for now. Thanks everyone for your participation. Thanks, Johan, for the presentation. It was great to have you all with us. We'll be making the recording and the slides available to you this week. So feel free to check them out again at your own time and leisure. And of course, feel free to check out our resources on our website. That you have some of the links here on this last slide. Whether it's for videos, documentation, to download the product. And of course, you can contact us at any time via the website as well. So thanks very much for your time and participation today. We'll share the replay information as soon as possible. And look out for our next webinar on ProxySQL, which is at the end of this month, and which we will announce this week. But for now, have a good rest of the day. Talk to you soon. And take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.